Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tuesday Night Touring Cars here on Flux Motorsport. I'm going to be your host for the evening. My name's Murphy, and we're just coming up to the end of our free practice session at the moment with the console reigning supreme through that one with a 1 minute 51.188, his best lap that time around. But things are going to be a little bit different through qualification as the clouds rain down in the Algarve. So let's get this session underway. 20 minutes of qualification follows this, and in the meantime I'll give you a run through over everything that happened last week around Bannock Brae. Just in case you missed that one, be sure to head over to our YouTube channel where you'll find the playlist for the touring cars in season 2, and you'll be able to watch that one back in either its highlight form or the live stream footage. So as you may or may not have already seen, the console reigned supreme last week at Bannock Brae. Tricky conditions around the Scottish road circuit with pretty consistent rain going all the way down, so that leaves him top of the standings table coming into race 2 around this very tricky Portimao circuit. Recently added to the F1 calendar, it now features within our Touring Car Championship throughout Season 2 here at Flux Motorsport. But whilst we're waiting for the drivers to go out on their warm-up laps, ready to get some hot laps started, as mentioned, let's have a little run through the standings from last week at Bannock Brae. So the console managed to get first place along with a podium and the fastest lap of the race, which gave him 2 bonus points in total. So he sits at the top of the charts on 37 points, with Jack de Menzies in second place on 30. Lecky 2000, who currently isn't here, we'll wait to see whether or not he manages to make it into this session. He's currently sat in third place on 27 points, and then Kovkarl in fourth place with 25. Then one of our new drivers with T. Scott in fifth place on 23 points, followed by Casey Redwood on 20 points in sixth. Then Jay Dyson in seventh place on 17 points, Luke Snipes in eighth with 15. All U82 in 9th place with 13 points, and then Old Smoky in 10th with 10 points. The rest of the drivers unable to finish the race due to various different reasons. We did have a couple of disconnections, but a few drivers also been in it a few too many times in those hazardous conditions and couldn't stand the heat, so they got right out of that kitchen. So it looks like we're just about to get things started with Luke Snipes now beginning his hot lap. We'll keep you up to date with all of the sector times as they start to come in. But in the meantime, let me know where you're watching this stream from tonight and your predictions for the race ahead. Are we going to see another whitewashing from the console, or is the Portimao circuit going to prove a little bit too hazardous for the Renault Meganes? It's certainly more suited for the BMW 320s, this circuit. Of course, the BMW rear-wheel drive, whereas the Renault Megane's front-wheel drive. There is a slight power difference between the two. The Renault Megane has 15 extra horsepower, but it is carrying a couple of £100 extra weight, which is probably the equivalent of 2 medium-sized passengers. More crucially, though, it is the rear-wheel drive that's going to benefit the BMWs through this one. This track really does torture the front left-hand tyre as it meanders through the Algarve hills. Beautiful track though, made up of 15 corners in total with a race distance of 2.92 miles, and what a fantastic sweeping camera angle that is as we go through the Portimao's turn here. That's turn 10 and 11, very tricky one in these front-wheel drive cars. You want to understeer, and you've got to try and position your car just right into the braking zones, otherwise you risk running wide and then getting a slowdown penalty for a breach of track limits. Then this really tricky Sagres section, turns 13, 14, and then into turn 15 Galp, which is the final turn of this corner, flat out, and you want to try and balance the amount of oversteer that you get in the front wheel drive cars. Don't want to scrub too much speed off for the sprint down the start-finish line into turn 1. So Tibby's set his first time, but it is an outlap, I believe. So Luke Snipes comes in with a 1:58. Let's have a look over to the last week's race winner with the console. Looks as though his lap has been invalidated that last time around. We'll follow him round though in the number 8 Actrol Vision McGann and see what he can make of it this time around. Giacomo looks as though he's gone top of the leaderboard so far though. 15 minutes remaining. TTV Giacomo setting a 152.591. However, it has just been out-qualified by Jack de Menzies though with a 152.279. Still no sign of either Lecky or Quiet Man, who may be able to make their way into the qualifying session to make sure that they make the race. Otherwise, it's going to be a DNS for them. And Nilpois started. They'll also get a 5-point deduction as well for not letting us know that they can't make it. So that will hurt Lecky's proposition in the challenge for the first Flux Motorsport Touring Car Championship trophy against his bitter rival but very good friend with the console. Looks like Giacomo's mob is joining us for the stream tonight. Good evening, Esme. Rooting on Jack. I'm assuming that it's for Giacomo. It could also be for Jack de Menzies. Not too sure on this one. I'm sure that she'll let us know as the race progresses, but I'm sure I recognise the name. 14 minutes remaining with Jack de Menzies on the top. The console is just coming round the final corner though, so he's about to set his first time, and he is gone purple in Sector 1 and Sector 2, so I'm expecting that this one's going to be a quick one. However, TTV Giacomo making improvements that last time around. So as the console approaches the start-finish line, there he goes with a 150.957. Real hot lap that from the moderator in the number 8 car. Let's have a look at what the rest of the pack is doing at the moment. T. Scott, I think, is currently away from our camera, just coming over the Portimao turn here in his number 19 car. It's actually a change of livery from T. Scott. He was previously in the 4C, so all of our drivers get one car change per season for free, and after that it will cost them. So T. Scott not happy with the 4C Motorsport team, and he's gone for a switch over to the PCCF team. Currently setting green sectors though, so he is making improvements at the moment, T. Scott. Looks as though Survivor, latecomer to this one, called in from the reserves, not currently setting his best. He's got red sectors across the board, as does Tibby, so both of these drivers perhaps with a slight disadvantage on the amount of track time that they've had. We'll have to wait and see how this materialises though into their final qualifying position when the 12 minutes that remain are up. T. Scott though, who we're currently following round 5th in the standings at the moment, just coming up to this tricky tabletop. As we see him now entering the brakes, he has to get that car set up. Looks as though he hit that apex pretty well. He not using the full extent of the track, but that is just fine on that corner. Especially gets exciting when you've got 2 or 3 cars approaching one another, and you can make quite a late braking manoeuvre into there. So it looks as though Kovkarl's just made an improvement that last lap around. He now goes up into 6th place. All U82 running quite well as well. Alaxon, aka All U82, currently sat in 5th. He had a disappointing race around Bannock Bray. I think unfortunately just got into a tussle with the walls a couple of times, and it set him back, but he's a really competent driver inside these touring cars, as it's Kovkarl from the old Rubbins Racing days. These are veterans of this championship, and looking to try and assert their positions now that it's switched over to the Flux Motorsport Touring Car Championship. J46 Dyson though has had an absolute stormer. He goes into 2nd position so far, not able to challenge the 150.957 of the console, but he's just shy of a second off from that. He's currently sat on the front row though, so he'll hopefully be able to challenge the console if it stays like it is into turn 1 very tricky turn 1 around Portimao. You have a pretty short run into turn 1, and generally speaking it's a bit of a late break and throw on the regular laps, but of course not able to do that when you're followed by 15 cars behind you at the front of that one. Got to put a lot of faith into your fellow drivers. Let's see whether or not T-Scott... Oh, he looks as though he just gets a little bit too hard on the brakes and his rear end wants to try and overtake the front. So he's lost a bit of time onto that one. Looks as though the console is back out of the pits and heading back onto track. He is on a cold lap at the moment and just encountering some traffic in the form of Jack de Menzies, it seems, in the green number 4's of Vima Racing Team, McGann. Let's have a look over at Giacomo. He looks as though he's just coming out of the pits as well in the number 86 Monster Energy. Just allowing the traffic to come through now. Let's have a look at one of our BMWs whilst we haven't really had a look at any of them so far. J46 Dyson. I did mention that the BMWs are going to be strong around this circuit, and it looks as though he's managing to make it work. I'll bring up the speedo as well so we can have a look at how they're taking this circuit. 9 minutes remaining so far though, with the console still sat on top. Track temperatures are I'd say fair to middling at the moment. 67 degrees Fahrenheit, which is perfectly acceptable. However, these tyres are still going to wear in the front wheel drive cars just from the amount of forced grip that they're putting through it as they throw themselves into these rather high paced corners. So just on his way down from through turn 9, I think, at the moment. That's Craig Jones' corner up to turn 10 and turn 11. And you'll notice the different lines that the BMW is able to take much further left into the braking zone of Portimao. And it looks as though he's abandoning this lap. Actually, J46 Dyson lets the other car through. So it looks as though he maybe just took a little bit too much off on the left-hand side and got himself a slowdown. So he ended up relinquishing the position. Let's have a look over to Kovkarl, currently sat in 5th place. He's currently flat on his sectors, so no improvement's going to be made this time. However, Old Smoky is actually on for a stormer at the moment, it seems. Just come outside the back of the final corner. He's green in sector 1, green in sector 2, so it's going to be an improvement. Let's see where it lands him. Currently 12th with a 155.4. So just pipping up Survivor and Green Gaming at the moment. 2 Canadian drivers in 13th and 14th place respectively. Looks as though we've got a former Clio Cup driver currently watching the stream. Good evening, Dan. Hope you're keeping well. All set for a fantastic touring car race number 2 around Portimao. Still low, the console leads to J46 Dyson with TTV Giacomo in 3rd and Jack de Menzies in 4th place at the moment. A few drivers into the pits making a few final adjustments. Just having a look around with Old Smoky at the moment. He has gone green once again in Sector 1. Luke Snipes was making improvements as well, but it looks as though his Sector 2 just let him down that last lap around. Stoltz at the moment is on for a bit of a hot one. Let's just have a flick over to Stoltz. Haven't seen him yet. He's in the number 20, so it looks as though Stoltz has also gone for a car change as well. I think we might have a few too many cars currently in the PCCF Motorsport livery, so somebody's going to have to change it, and they may well find themselves with some points differences. But Stoltz goes really well, puts himself into 5th place, just knocking Kovkarl down a position. It's good running that way around. It looks as though he's keeping it out for another one. 6 minutes remaining. He's got 5 litres worth of fuel, so that should be enough for another lap. Lucy Axon now joining us on the stream. Good evening, Lucy. He's shouting along all you 82. He's currently in 9th position, but hopefully will make some improvements on that. Currently flat in his sector time, so I don't think he's going to make any improvements this time around. Setting a 55 seconds in Sector 1. Just for comparison, the current sector times of the console is a 43.7 in Sector 1, so miles off the pace at the moment. Old Smokey's just gone purple in Sector 3 though, so Old Smokey looks as though he's starting to make some inroads. And where's that put him in the grand scheme of things? He's still 13th on there, but he has just gone purple in fact, it looks as though it was an invalid lap because it's showing up with a 138.5, so apologies for that. My telemetry obviously just playing up ever so slightly there. I'm assuming that corner was cut to take away 20 seconds worth of pace out from the current provisional pole setter of the console. So as we go into these final 4 minutes, let me tell you a little bit more about what you can expect this week on Flux Motorsport TV. So as ever, Tuesdays means touring cars here at Flux Motorsport, but on Thursdays it'll be round 2 of the GT1 Championship, and we're heading over to Daytona Road Course for that one. Currently not broadcast live, but you will be able to check the highlights out as soon as we can get them uploaded to the YouTube channel. Race 1 is now available on that playlist, so be sure to check that out, both highlights and the full live stream from Lecky 2000 available there. And then Saturdays is our unbroadcast LMP2 Championship. That was pretty hotly contested, and the standing shows Bruce Law to be reigning ahead with that one, but our Dutch drivers, along with our staff members, looking pretty strong in that one, with Bruce Law in first, Tibby in second, Lecky 2000 in third, and then Giacomo and Dirk Diggler in fourth and fifth place in that championship. And then Saturdays you'll be able to join both myself and the console for the GT3 Championship. Always very popular, this one, plenty of drivers looking to try and get involved into it, but Bruce Law continues to assert his dominance as he did last season. Of course, he didn't manage to win the championship, he finished in third place, but Bruce Law with the fastest lap and the race victory around Daytona sees him in first place, with Dr. Potford and Snarling Bongo in second and third respectively. So the next race in the GT3 calendar takes us up to the Circuit of the Americas. Going to be a very different circuit indeed to the Daytona Road Course. We did have a lot of penalties applied around Daytona Road Course, so a few changes in positions, which is why you may not recognise some of the later positions within the standings table. But back over to this evening's race around Portimao. So the console continues to reign in provisional pole position. J46 Dyson, that last lap around though, did make improvements in both Sector 1 and Sector 2, and he's brought his deficit from the console down from 0.9 of a second down to 0.718. Jack Demenzies in third place at the moment, with TTV Giacomo currently in fourth. We are currently watching the console low as he takes his way around the tabletop section of the Portimao, so turn 10 and 11 into turn 12, and you'll notice they're just balancing the throttle and a little bit of trail braking up through turn 13 up to Sagres now, and just balancing the throttle comfortably, trying to manage out the understeer, and then foot flat to the floor where it'll remain all the way around the Galp corner. Turn 15, the final corner, hugs the inside, then uses all of the road to the outside for that big drive down, hopefully maxing out in 6th gear by the time he reaches turn 1. Now let's have a look at Dyson. Dyson has just gone purple in Sector 1. It looks to be very fast indeed. Sector 2 looks as though it's currently in fact, there we go. Sector 2 was average from J46 Dyson, but his Sector 3 was pretty darn quick, and that now puts the deficit to just 0.345 of a second. However, that is his session done, so it looks as though he's going to be putting it down to the lap times of Jack Demenzies and TTV Giacomo to see whether or not he can be challenged. Both of these drivers look very similar at the moment. Third and fourth place, the two Jacks, in and around the same lap times in the qualification, whereas it looks as the console is flying right ahead. Big shame that Lecky 2000 couldn't be joining us for tonight's race, because he was looking very, very quick in some of the practice sessions earlier on, and I know that this is one of his more favoured circuits in the calendar for this season. So he's going to end up with nil power on this one. Whereas Jack Demenzi's going to make an improvement. He does make a minor improvement, but not enough to challenge the second place of J46 Dyson. Just heading over to Giacomo now. Giacomo currently green in Sector 1. He's gone white in Sector 2, so no improvements there. But he finds himself around about 3/10 off the purple Sector 1 times. We'll have to see what can happen here in Sector 3. Did look as though he just lost a little bit of time on the exit of turn 13. So comes through 14, down into 15, hugs the inside curb there, takes it completely flat, and didn't look as though he scrubbed much speed off, but I don't think there's going to be much of an improvement here. He's going to be challenging for the third place of Jack Demenzi's, I think. And across the line with no improvement made. Over to all U82 now with Lucy watching with bated breath. He's gone green in Sector 1, white in Sector 2. Let's see whether or not his Sector 3 is good enough to be able to challenge for 5th or maybe even 4th place here. So all U82 comes across the line. He does make an improvement, but it's not enough to see him challenge for those. So here is the lineup into round 2 of the Autodromo Internacional do Algarve circuit. The console takes pole position, and therefore the bonus point before we even get underway. J46 Dyson lines up alongside him on the front row, with Jack Demenzi's in 3rd place and TTV Giacomo actually suffering a 1-place grid penalty, putting him down into 4th position. Stoltz 44 does enough for 5th place, with all U82 alongside him. And then Kovkarl in 7th with Tibby in 8th. Luke Snipes in 9th with T. Scott in 10th place. Then Casey Redwood in 11th with Survivor doing pretty well to make up into 12th. Old Smokey in 13th with Green Gaming next to him making up the last place on the grid. So as ever, 2 minutes worth of tinker time for them to get the setups, and then we're going to be all set for 45 minutes of action here on track. For those of you that are watching us for the first time, our settings for this race are accelerated tyre wear and performance impacting damage is turned on, as well as realistic driving aids. So these drivers are going to have exactly what the actual race cars have. So let's have a quick run through the grid here. We've got the console in 1st place in the number 8 Actrol version, Megane, followed by J46 Dyson, who's in his number 31 eMotorsports BMW. Then Jack Demenzi's in the number 4 Zavima Racing Team Megane. In fact, I'll jump into the chase cam so you can actually get a good view of these. Then Stoltz, who's currently in the number 20 PCCF. TTV Giacomo in the number 86 Monster Energy Megane. Then all U82 in the number 11 Air Bubbles Megane. Kovkarl in his favoured number 20 PCCF Megane. Then Tibby in the number 98 BMW. Luke Snipes in the number 25 Hawkeen Racing Megane. Then T. Scott in his new number 19 PCCF Megane. Casey Redwood is in the number 62 Horbsner Automotive Megane. Then Survivor chooses the number 85 Monster Energy Megane, followed by Old Smokey in the number 56 Emochi Racing. And then Green Gaming goes for a BMW. He's in the number 27 SRT BMW. So 15 seconds remaining until the driver's ready up. We'll go back trackside now and let's have a look at the lights as we prepare to get this second race in the season underway. There's the reds and the green lights. The drivers are off, and check out the BMWs. They will make a strong start here, but it looks as though the console currently able to hold it off. It does look as though Tibby is making inroads up on the inside in that BMW. Let's have a look at him. Currently in 6th place. Going to the chase cam here, so he's got Stoltz ahead of him, as well as Giacomo. J46 Dyson, Jack Demenzi's has been able to make up a place. The console currently out in 1st position though. Looks as though Green Gaming's managed to make up a place on Casey Redwood as well, a little bit further down the pack, but it's the console leading to Jack Demenzies with TTV Giacomo in third, J46 Dyson falling down into 5th place now with Tibby in 6th, who we're currently tracking around, and he comes very close to the front end of Tibby there. Olu82 in 7th place with Kovkarl in 8th, T-Scott in 9th and Old Smoky in 10th place. Luke Snipes has made up a position or two in 11th with Survivor in 12th, Green Game in 13th and Casey Redwood currently at the back of the pack. Let's flick back over to the console at the moment. Look at the lead that he's already managed to get as he approaches Portimao here. We'll go down the grid a little bit as we see J46 Dyson making a move up the inside of Stoltz, and that looks like it's job done as we see Tibby there getting very loose in the BMW. Is he going to be able to hold it? We'll flick back over to him. He has lost a bit of momentum, but it looks as though he's kept it on the black stuff. But that is Olu82 in the number 11 air bubbles now taking hold of that position, and it looks as though he's also being challenged around the outside as well, just managing to hold on to 7th place from Tibby there in the Beamer. The rear end of the rear wheel drive is a little bit looser, so it looks as though he just struggled a little bit there at the top of Portimao, and a great shot as we see the crest coming down from turn 15, and now these drivers are going to drag it all the way up to turn 1. Into the chase cam now with Old Smoky in 9th position. We can see ahead of him Tibby in the right hand side, and it comes very close there. It looks as though Kovkarl's got very loose indeed. Tibby's gone off to the right hand, it's J46 Dyson falls off to the right hand side. It looks as though he may well have stalled it as well, so he's going to be challenged by Casey Redwood, who moves up into 12th place, and now Green Gaming is in 14th, so non-stop action here. We'll jump back to the front of the pack with Giacomo in 3rd place, currently raining down on Jack Demenzies, and the console hasn't been able to assert too much of a dominant lead at the moment. The gap currently 0.8 of a second, so it's certainly obtainable here, but you can see these 3 drivers have managed to make up a lead of over 4 seconds at the moment to the rest of the pack. We have got a few penalties to speak of. Jack Demenzies, TTV Giacomo, Tibby and Survivor currently with penalties. That will play a role come the end of this race, I'm sure of it. But these 3 drivers now looking to find themselves in a bit of a regular formation. Let's have a look at the rest of the action that's coming up to the top of Portimao. We can see Tibby there getting wide on the other side of the circuit to what we saw last time. We're currently tracking around with T-Scott, and T-Scott looks as though he's lost out on a couple of positions, and Survivor, I just saw him dropping down. In fact, he's currently challenging with Luke Snipes, it seems. Luke Snipes, the number 56 I think it is on the inside, number 25 Joaquin, currently holding on to the inside of Survivor as Survivor looks to stick in his draft, and Survivor just going a little bit wide there, and you can see the difference it means to your momentum as they come down the start-finish straight. Let's have a look a little bit further up the pack here. Jump back into the chase cam. So we're on board with T-Scott with Old Smoky and Kovkarl ahead. You can actually just see Tibby making inroads up the inside there into turn 1, and that's to take 6th position. So he's managing to make a big recovery as you see T-Scott getting very wide indeed. That's certainly going to be a slowdown penalty, as I think we may have had as well with Tibby. He slows right down, and not sure what happened with Kovkarl. Kovkarl looked to get very loose indeed, and Old Smoky just struggling to keep that rear end of the Emochi car, the number 56, just on the left-hand side of your screen, and it looks as though he's going to be challenged now by T-Scott. All sorts of action going on between these 5 cars at the moment. Looks to be clean, but just trading places and maybe even a little bit of paint in lap 3 of this race. It's been non-stop, and it's what you come to expect from touring cars, and Tibby loses the rear end and absolutely clatters T-Scott. That's going to hurt for sure. That's going to put Tibby definitely into the pits, and it might well see T-Scott coming into the pits come the end of that one as well. Some considerable damage going on from that one, and that is the risk that you run with the BMW, I think. Let's have a look at how T-Scott's car is affected into the braking of Portimao. It looks as though his car is still relatively stable. However, Tibby is all over the place as we see him spinning out there, and that's going to see him fall into dead last. So up to the front of the race at the moment, the console still leading with Giacomo and Jack de Menzies in second, with TTV Giacomo in third position. They're now 7 or possibly even 8 seconds ahead of the rest of the pack, so there's plenty of action going on right behind them. Let's jump back over to Old Smoky, currently in 9th place, and he's just making a move up the inside of T-Scott, I think, on the drag up to the start-finish line. You can see him there riding into the slipstream and trying to drag it down into turn 1. Now, turn 1's optimal line is on the left-hand side, so Old Smoky's going to have to try and compensate with a little bit of clever braking here. The two drivers managed to avoid coming together. You can see the scrapes down the side of T. Scott's car at the moment. He's keeping it out, but he is locking up the rear wheel. So I wonder whether or not his balance of the car is being affected. So far, Jack de Menzies is setting the fastest Sector 2 and the fastest Sector 3, so he is making some good time up on the current race leader. However, the console going fastest in Sector 1 and making all of that time back up by around about 0.8 of a second. So we'll continue to have a look at this action. We've got Old Smoky currently chasing down T. Scott, but we can also see Casey Redwood as well, the Curb Clippers driver. He'll have plenty of support from his fellow racing community compatriots, I'm sure. Currently running in 10th, just trying to find his feet within the Touring Car Championship, and I'm sure we'll see him try and ride this one out, have a nice, clean, consistent race. He's currently looking all right at the moment. His lap times are looking a bit better than the cars ahead of him, and we see him now moving up into 9th position. Big lock up from the rear wheels though. It looks as though we've got a bit of a battle going on between the battered and broken BMW of Tibby fighting out with the other BMW of Green Gaming at the moment. Looks as though he's made the move around the outside. Green Gaming has got the inside line though, but it looks as though he's going to have to fall back into line, and he gets very, very loose. Is he going to hold on to it? Green Gaming nearly loses the back end there, and that's not a place that you want to do it, because it's probably going to send him into the pits, but manages to control the oversteer there. A little bit of opposite lock and it's enough. So far we've got all three BMWs at the back of the grid. Looks as though Green Gaming's having a little look up the inside, though, as I mentioned, not the optimum line. So he thinks about it again and falls back into position. Meanwhile, in the comments section, Esme thinking that the top three is going to be hard to catch up with, and I've got to say, Esme, I've got to agree with you. Currently got an 8-second lead to the rest of the pack, and they all seem to be in a race of their own. However, we've got 4 packs really forming up on the circuit, so 1 to 3, then 4 down to 6th, and then 7th, all the way down to 11th place, and then just 3 seconds between this little pack of BMWs right at the back of the grid at the moment. Let's have a look over to 9th place with Casey Redwood. We mentioned him earlier. He's currently chasing down T. Scott. Got a bit of a difference ahead of him as they're coming up to turn 10 here. This is that one that I've mentioned a couple of times. The Portimao circuit looks as though Casey Redwood just taking that ever so tentatively. He's going to have to try and pick that up if he wants to try and take these positions through. It needs to be much smoother than that to be able to get the optimum line, but maybe just finding his feet a little bit with the setup and maybe the car around the circuit. We'll look over to the top 3 at the moment. So TTV Giacomo and Jack de Menzies currently battling it out there. Got even closer to one another. They're within a second of each other between 1st, 2nd and 3rd at the moment. And it looks as though Giacomo just running ever so slightly wide, just getting his braking a little bit out of shape there into turn 4. We're going to have a long drag down into Tory VIP. Heavy braking into 2nd gear, maybe even 1st, as they drive themselves up the hill. Very fast, flat left-hander. And then you've got to get your line set up for a flat or maybe just a little lift-off right-hander, and then heavy onto the brakes up the hill, which is why we can see the rear end of that Renault Megane just starting to get ever so slightly loose. But Giacomo is holding it pretty well. He remains 1 second behind Jack de Menzies at the moment, whereas the console has now got a 2-second lead to his closest rivals. And you can see that lead there just falling into maybe 60, 70 yards. So it's not a huge amount of lead. One mistake will see him fall right back in line with the rest of these guys. Meanwhile, we've got some action forming down into the pack. So 10th place, we've got Old Smoky with Casey Redwood and T. Scott ahead of him. Luke Snipes isn't too far ahead either. I think the BMW's still riding at the back of this grid at the moment with Green Gaming, Tibby and J46 Dyson, so no changes there. A big puff of the brakes there on the rear left from, I think, all three of those cars, so all three of the Renault Meganes, with a fair bit of brake bias set to the rear, it seems. Of course, drivers able to adjust the brake bias as long as they've got a button assigned to it. So they will be trying to play about to try and find the right sort of balance in these front wheel drive cars as the lap progresses, if they want to try and get optimum times. Does look as though the circuit's starting to slow down a little bit now. I don't know whether or not that is the console just trying to balance his pace. But Stoltz, Kovkarl and Luke Snipes have gone green that last lap around, so a few drivers still pushing it. And if you're watching this and wondering how you can get involved within Flux Motorsport and our championships, as well as our community races and community challenges, then of course you just need to go to that website being www.fluxmotorsport.com. And if you're just in it for the lols, then you can follow us on all of our social media sites, as well as hitting a subscribe to the YouTube channel to make sure that you don't miss any of the action as it either comes out live or gets uploaded to you. If you're looking to find us on social media, just type in Flux Motorsport on either Twitter, Instagram or Facebook. The Facebook will require you to request access, but we'll be able to get that accepted pretty sharpish. Whereas Twitter and Instagram, you can just go ahead and follow us and you'll be able to get all of the updates from our resident journalist in the form of Jack de Menzies. He'll be hoping that he can try and record his first race victory in the touring cars this one around, and it does look as though he's making inroads on the console ahead. He's got that lead down from 2.4 seconds down to 1.8, so he did do very well that last time around. Let's have a look at Casey Redwood at the moment. Looks as though he's managing to make his moves on T. Scott. Let's jump into the cockpit of Casey Redwood. You can see there just how he's trying to balance the steering wheel with the throttle down to the metal, trying to make sure that he doesn't scrub any of that speed off. Now the speed that you can see at the bottom is of course in kilometers an hour, just being shown on his Motec display there, but he's not going to be able to make the moves on T. Scott this time around. Let's have a look at Survivor. It looks as though he's being passed by J46 Dyson, so we've got a BMW making his way up from the back three. Survivor now in 12th place with J46 Dyson moving up into 11th. Back over to the battle between Casey Redwood and T. Scott. T. Scott getting very loose under braking there as into the approach of Tory Vip, and looks as though that's allowed Casey Redwood to make up a little bit of momentum. Wonder whether or not there was a slowdown penalty as well, because it did look as though T. Scott just exceeded the track limits, and doesn't look as though he slowed down too much. Jump into the chase cam, try and get a good view of this one. Big flat left-hander coming up through Craig Jones and then up the hill into turn 10 now. Casey Redwood in the inside here. That is definitely not the line that you want to be taking. You want to be on the left. Light little bit of braking into heavy braking before you throw it into that tricky right-hander down the hill. And that's why we can see T. Scott just making a little bit of a gain out of that corner section. Now this one, very tricky indeed. It looks a lot easier than it is, but you've got an off-camber right-hander down the hill and your car just wants to understeer. No matter which car you're in, whether or not it's rear-wheel drive or front-wheel drive, the car just wants to come away from you. But then you have got a slight camber advantage into the final turn. That just allows you to fly as hard as you can down that final corner. So let's have a look over. Looks as though Green Gaming remains in 14th place, Tibby in 13th, but J46 Dyson now is about to make a move up the inside of Old Smoky, and it looks as though, so long as he doesn't go too wild on his braking, he's going to get that one done. It does go a little bit too wild. As mentioned, he wants to be on the left-hand side for that optimal line, and that just allows Old Smoky to take that position right back. So flashing the lights there, so Old Smoky got a slowdown penalty. He allows J46 Dyson to come through, and that's going to allow him to really put the pressure on Casey Redwood pretty shortly, I think. So looking at what's going on at the front here, we've got Stoltz and Old U82 currently not too far away from each other. We did get the little exclamation mark warning on the right hand side of the split time interface on the left hand side of your screen. That exclamation mark means that he's within I think it's a second or maybe even a second and a half of one another, so that's why you'll see those exclamation marks flashing up. The red indicator on the numbers means that they've got a warning from the from the race director for track limits. Usually it could be for a number of things, and if the drivers don't slow down, then they will get a time penalty to be added. Whilst we've got a bit of time, let's have a look at those time penalties. So at the moment, the console is completely clean. Jack de Menzies has got 7 seconds worth of penalties to be added on come the end of this race, whereas Giacomo has 9 seconds. Stoltz has got a second, as has Kovkarl, so those two wiping each other out if they remain in their positions. Luke Snipes is running clean, but T. Scott has got 4 seconds with Casey Redwood with a 2-second penalty. Then J46 Dyson is clean with Old Smoky with a 5-second, but Survivor 1880, 13 seconds worth of penalty so far, and that is going to hurt him if he remains in 12th place, because he is side by side, it seems, at the moment with Tibby. So Tibby in the BMW, Survivor in the Monster McGowan, as Tibby gets very loose on the rear end, just struggling to maintain clear grip in the BMW, but Survivor ran very, very wide, came back onto the track safely, thank goodness, but he falls back behind Tibby, and I don't think the Renault Megane's going to be able to out-drag the BMW on the run-up to Tory Vip. Oh, was there a bit of contact there? I think there may well have been. I think Survivor just caught the back end of Tibby. Yeah, we see him there holding up for him. Good track etiquette followed by Survivor. And we did have a few instances in the GT3 race where drivers weren't waiting after they made contact. So quite clear contact from Survivor there. Holds Tibby up, but then gives the position back, which is what we like to see. Back over to the action between Old Smoky and J46 Dyson. These two are having a mighty battle. So Old Smoky in the Emochi livery and J46 Dyson in the BMW. Looks as though the BMW is managing to just outgun it through the corners at the moment, and that's not going to help Old Smoky. Big puff of smoke from the brakes. So he's going to have to try it once again. Let's have a flick over to our race leader. Let's have a look where he is on track with the track map. You can see there he's got plenty of clear air. He's just coming up to turn 5 at the moment. So through Tory Vib, up the hill into the flat left-hander. And that is Jack de Menzies that you can see behind him. We might just get a glimpse of Giacomo as well. Nope, doesn't look as though Giacomo is in sight at the moment. But the console is running away with this one. And I do believe, if we just have a look, he has currently got the fastest lap, so he may be set for another 37 points here. As he's in clear air, let's go back to some of the action a little bit further down the pack. Just having a look at it, we've got Casey Redwood battling with T. Scott still. A couple of seconds deficit between the two. Let's see what happens in the run-up. I think this might well be into Tory Vip. It is indeed. Apologies, by the way, for any Portuguese that may be watching tonight. Certainly, language is not one of my strong points, especially Portuguese, which I have never spoken in my life, so if I do get any of these pronunciations wrong, I do beg your pardon. Casey Redwood, though, still within fighting distance, within 1 second of T. Scott. Let's jump into the chase cam and let's have a look at the difference. Doesn't look as though he's able to command that line just yet. He hasn't learnt yet that he wants to be left and throwing quite late, and continue to see T. Scott just making gains out of that corner. And then it looks as though Casey Redwood makes the gains back up into the very tricky turn 13, 14 and 15. Let's see whether or not he can close into that gap. Casey Redwood certainly does look a little bit smoother through turn 14, through Sagres. And then let's see whether or not we get any tyre squeal through turn 15. No, it looks to be super smooth, Redwood. It looks as though we've got our first casualty of the evening. Looks as though Tibby has been a retirement here. So he returns to the pits. Tibby is out, obviously having enough of that BMW going sideways. As we see, ooh, big lock up there from Casey Redwood. Just manages to get control of the car again before he makes contact with T. Scott. And that has scrubbed off quite a lot of speed, and that is going to put him under the pressure of J46 Dyson if he's not careful. It looks as though we've got our first person into the pits in the form of Survivor. Let's have a look what's going on with this one. I'm going to see a change of tyres. I can't imagine that we will. Nope, looks as though it's just damage repairs for Survivor. Hopefully he's not going through the heartache that he saw in the GT3 race where he actually had his radiator closed. We saw him with huge pit stops, sort of 4 to 5 minute pit stops. A couple of times through that race he just went out in his qualifying setup. Bit of a schoolboy error from the young Canadian, and found himself almost spending longer in the pits than he did out on track. Still in the pits at the moment, so it's a pretty lengthy stop, so I think that's going to secure his final position in terms of the grid here. It will be 13th place though, so it's not going to be the minimum amount of points. There's going to be no points scored from Tibby, and actually minus points for both Quiet Man and Lecky 2000. So the console continues to reign dominant. Almost 3 seconds lead to Jack de Menzies, with TTV Giacomo now falling around about 10 seconds behind Jack de Menzies. All U82 is looking pretty comfortable in 4th place, which will make Lucy Axon very happy watching him on the stream tonight. That'll be a good solid finish for him. And I think he is currently 5th in the standings. Let me just bring this up. Oh, beg your pardon, currently 9th in the standings. And just as we've got some pit lane chatter coming in from Tibby, Tibby has just retired, and he's thrown his helmet across to the BMW team members. He was previously racing for BMW's motorsport division in the number 98 BMW. He's no longer racing for K-Max, and he's switched allegiances over to the SRT Motorsport Megane for the remainder of the season. So Tibby deciding to use up his car change, and obviously just struggling ever so slightly with the BMW. I think it could be a wise choice, seeing how loose that rear end was getting from him. So 20 minutes remaining as the clouds start to darken. We're going to see those track temperatures coming down here at Portimao now. We're continuing to follow Casey Redwood in his battle with T. Scott. This has been going on for some time with little inroads being made. Let's jump back over to the chase cam and let's see whether or not we can see the smoothness being taken. We can see the differences in braking, and it looks as though T. Scott just getting his braking a little bit wrong. He ends up scrubbing a bit of speed and momentum away, and that's going to allow Casey Redwood to have a go this time around, I think. You can see him up the inside, trying to make sure he doesn't scrub any speed up, and he's got the drag. He's going to have a little bit of slipstream effect as well. We'll jump back trackside in a second once we cross over the line, and it looks as though that move is about to be done. The two drivers come together. Looks as though no harm, no foul, just a little bit of paint exchange but Casey Redwood now moves into 8th position. Is he going to be able to hold it? Doesn't look as though he can. Falls back into 9th. Just gets turn 1 a little bit loose. Doesn't attack the outside of the circuit like he wants to, and that's going to allow J46 Dyson to move his way up. We're going to see a drag here from J46 Dyson on him. It doesn't look as though he has. He looks as though he's lost momentum coming out of turn 4, and he's going to have to fall back into position. Let's have a look over to Kovkarl. He's currently challenging Stoltz at the moment. Looks as though a fellow team member. So Kovkarl was making inroads on Stoltz, but looks as though he just scooped a bit of speed away. Let's see what he can do through Portimao, see whether or not he can make any of that pace back up. Doesn't look as though he can, so Stoltz looks as though he's just ever so slightly smoother through this. Back over to Casey Redwood and J46 Dyson continuing to duke it out here. And T. Scott's not too far away from that in the mix as well. J46 Dyson hoping to try and get on the back end of Casey Redwood here. Jump into the chase cam and have a look at this train of 3 cars. We see a big lock up there from both of the Renaults, and J46 Dyson having to make evasive manoeuvres there to make sure that he didn't make a collision. BMW just much smoother on the brakes through that. So 18 minutes remain here in round 2 of the Flux Motorsport Touring Car Championship. The console continues to lead ahead of Jack Demenzies with TTV Giacomo in 3rd, All-U82 in 4th with Stoltz in 5th and Kovkarl in 6th position. Luke Snipes is doing well in 7th with T. Scott in 8th. He's just at the forefront of your screen here, and Casey Redwood looks up the inside again. That is going to slow him down, but T. Scott runs a little bit wide, and that's going to be a slowdown penalty, I'm pretty sure. He might just take the time penalty, and there we see a little bit of collision as Casey Redwood locks up under braking once again. So the Renault Meganes just seem to have the brake balance ever so slightly wrong, and we've seen plenty of lockups from the rear brakes. They may just want to shift that brake balance forward to try and avoid that. And we see it once again. T. Scott running ever so wide on the braking. That allows Casey Redwood to close the gap, and if he's not careful, this is going to allow Dyson to make a move up. Both of them, as we see, oh no, big coming together from Casey Redwood. I think he got his line a little bit wrong. J46 rolled the dice to try and move it up the inside, and unfortunately came off worse. That's probably going to be one for the stewards. It's going to be a tricky one to decide as well, but that's now allowing Old Smoky to approach on J46, and Dyson, big flash of the lights there, clearly unhappy with what went on. Well, I think it may come down to 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I think the overtaking driver does need to be clear, because the line is the driver's ahead, and it didn't look as though Casey Redwood made that much of a mistake. It's just that J46 Dyson carried so much momentum coming through it. Old Smoky's making gains now. We might well see a pit from J46 Dyson. Let's have a look as they come around turn 15. Doesn't look as though he is. He's still holding out onto the left-hand side. We'll see him dart up into the right here if he's coming into the pits, but he's not. So Old Smoky is currently riding in the slipstream. Looks as though he's going to make this one work for him, but is he going to be able to get it secured before turn 1? Once again, the inside line not working very well, but he is later on the brakes than Dyson, and it looks as though he's managed to take that position. So Old Smoky in the Emochi liveried Megane makes his way up into 10th position. So 15 minutes remain. The console continues to lead. We've not seen much of him because we've had plenty of action from the back markers in this race, and huge fight brewing here between Old Smoky and J46 Dyson. J46 Dyson looks as though he's going to go the long way around. That's going to leave him with the inside line into this next one. We saw how much extra speed he was able to carry compared to the Renault Megane last time around. Heavy onto the brakes into the right-hander up the hill. Old Smoky continuing to hold that position for now, though. Let's jump into the cockpit of of Dyson. Let's have a look how he manages to take this line different up through the tabletop of Portimao, and Old Smoky runs very, very wide, and that's going to allow Dyson through, I think. It is indeed. Up onto the inside, and quite a clear advantage there. That's going to be hard to try and make up. But you can see the difference there with Old Smoky. No lock-up on the brakes into turn 13 compared to the drivers that are ahead of him. Let's have a look at our timing board. So 7-second penalty to Jack de Menzies, 9 seconds to Giacomo. Looks as though All U82 has now got an advantage on Stoltz. Stoltz now picking up 3 seconds worth of penalties come the end of this race. T. Scott's got 11 seconds with Casey Redwood with 4, and Old Smoky has got 8 seconds worth of penalties so far. Let's have a look at the action a little bit further up here. It's been happening through most of the race. Casey Redwood and T. Scott both puffing out smoke from their, I think that's from the front right-hand tyre this time around. Looking at the current sector times, it's got to be said that the consistency of the console in first position is putting in consistent 151.9s, which is a pretty quick lap at the best of the times. It looks as though he just slips a little bit behind as he begins lap 18 with a 152, but he's been super consistent almost every single lap around here. Just running shy of the qualifying pace by around about 8 or 9 tenths, but huge pace here at Portimao. A little look at some of the rest of the drivers. So currently trying to find All U82. You can just see the distance between him and Stoltz behind, and that is Kovkarl as well, that you can see just behind Stoltz in that background. So huge leads there at the moment. So All U82 looking pretty comfortable in that number 11 Air Bubbles liveried Megane, and he just needs to sort of ride this one out till the end. He may have an opportunity to try and game on Giacomo. That just depends on how much of a penalty Giacomo is going to rack up come the end of this race. Back over to the battle between Casey Redwood and T. Scott. Battle for 8th place. It's been going on for some time. Casey Redwood making inroads, and it looks as though he's starting to suss that late turning into turn 1. Maybe just overcorrected. We saw him turning in twice there on the stream, and that's going to cost him, but heavy into the braking, and we saw a big puff of smoke from T. Scott. And it's almost flat with a little lift off for this left-hander, and then flat to the ground again into the sprint up to Tory Vip. But you can see there was a 1 second difference between the two. It's now gone down to 3 seconds, so just goes to show what the loss of momentum can do inside these touring cars. Less powerful. I mean, they've still got plenty of power, 330 horsepower in the Meganes and 315 in the BMWs, but low horsepower, low downforce, and just mainly mechanical grip in the touring cars. It's all about maintaining your momentum throughout the corners. So as this one starts to draw into a close, into its final 10 minutes, just have a little look about what's going on next week in the touring cars. So I did mention last week the full championship lineup, but after this week's race we're going to head over to America for 4 races, starting with Daytona Road Course and then Long Beach GP circuit, followed by my personal favourite Laguna Seca, which is going to be fantastic to watch these touring cars flying around that infamous circuit. And then, I beg your pardon, so it's just 3 courses in the USA. Then we're going over to the UAE, to the Dubai Autodrome, for their international circuit, not the GP. And then we're going to go over to Australasia for Rapuna Park in New Zealand, followed by Bathurst for a rather special closeout to the season, which will be on the 15th of December. 10 minutes remain. The console remains out in first place with a comfortable almost 5-second gap to Jack de Menzies at the moment. Giacomo is doing pretty solid in third place. Not losing too much time with the attack of all you 82 behind him in 4th. Stoltz is sort of maintaining his pace at the moment to maintain 5th place with Kovkarl in 6th. Let's have a look at Luke Snipes at the moment, running in the number 25 Joaquin Motorsport livery. Just a bit of a puff up on the brakes, but running quite well in 7th position. Starting to find his feet in a lot of championships now. We're seeing big improvements from a lot of our returning drivers into Season 2, and it's great to see as they practice with some of the best that our community has to offer, getting all the tips and tricks that they can, soaking up the knowledge like a sponge, and we can see the improvements being made race after race. So it's great to see from some of the younger drivers making those improvements and generally improving themselves as a sim racer, as well as maybe taking some of these skills off onto real world motorsport as well. And if you'd like to try and learn from the best that we have to offer, then all you need to do is head on over to our website, which is www.fluxmotorsport.com. You'll find a link in the top right hand side of your screen to join our Discord, and if you're not familiar with Discord, don't panic. It's a completely free app, readily available for all of your devices, and you'll be able to follow that link and join us on our Discord, where you'll be greeted by the whole staff team, probably even myself in there as well. Whilst I've been waffling on, looks as though Jack de Menzies has made big inroads onto the console. Now, not sure what happened through this one. It does look as though Sector 1, I think we had a mistake from the console in Sector 1. He was 4 seconds slower than Jack de Menzies this lap around. So that's obviously where the deficits come in. He's going to be pretty well challenged now. Now, don't forget, the console, when we last checked the timing board, is clean, and he still is. So Jack de Menzies will have to get ahead of the console by 7 seconds or above in order to take the race victory here. But this will be a bit of a moral victory to know that he can try and challenge him. And if he tries to put Alex off by getting all over the rear view mirror, you never know what could happen as the console continues to push and push. He may well make a mistake and may well start to rack up some slowdown penalties himself. But good bit of consistency there from Jack de Menzies. Proven driver, he is racing on a pad, but very quick in the GT1s. Also extremely quick, it seems, in the Touring Car Championship. I know that both myself and Lecky 2000 evaluated Jack de Menzies. We took him out in a touring car. Both myself and Lecky do enjoy a good touring car thrashing. And he was, I think he actually beat us inside the race, so it shows the outright pace that he had from the very off here. And he's a motorsport enthusiast, actually a sports writer for the independent newspaper. So he goes around the globe, usually when there isn't a pandemic around, following what he loves, and now getting involved in what he loves in simulated esports as well, and certainly making his presence known around the back of the console's pink Actral Vision Megane at the moment, maintaining that 1 second split at the moment. Let's have a look what the lap times come out at the end of lap 21. 5 minutes and 40 seconds remaining inside the race. And this looks to be the closest battle that we've got going on. Looks as though in the meantime Old Smokey's had a bit of a nightmare. We've seen him come in. It must be for a really extended pit stop, because Survivor is now in 12th place after his long stop. Big puff of smoke there from the console, and I think that just comes down to the pressure, as I mentioned. Just waiting for my split times to reload, but it does look as though Jack de Menzies has lost a little bit of momentum coming out of turn 4. Have to wait and see when they cross the split marker. Let's have a look at the map as well. Let's see whether or not they're going to have any traffic. Doesn't look as though they have. However, we have got a car parked up at the moment. I think that might well be Old Smokey looking at his times. we'll soon see, I think. Let's jump into the cockpit cam. Sorry, into the chase cam so we can just get a good view. It looks as though we just missed him. And there he goes. Old Smokey is out of the race, so it's going to be a retirement from Old Smokey. Not sure what happened, but he was parked up just on the I think it was in the run up to Portimao, actually, coming through Craig Jones' corner. But the lead from the console now knocked down to 0.6 of a second. 4 minutes remaining, so that's going to be a couple more laps here, maybe even 3 laps depending on when they finish. Have to wait and see how they cross the line, but don't forget, Jack de Menzies will need to make up 7 seconds in order to take the race victory, and that does depend on whether or not there's any penalties. In fact, there is a penalty gained. Jack de Menzies now up to 9 seconds worth of penalties, so we'll have to get 9 seconds ahead of the console in order to take the race victory. He'll be mindful of that as well as he tries to make any overtakes on the console, just to make sure that he doesn't pick up any penalties against his race license for making a collision against the leader when he already has 9 seconds deficit. So 3 minutes now remaining. Looks as though the action between Casey Redwood and T. Scott has now been swapped over for action between J46 Dyson and T. Scott. I'll have a little flick over to this at the moment so we can see there J46 Dyson and his yellow Pirelli BMW all over the back of T. Scott at the moment. And the BMW, provided it can maintain its grip, does have a slight advantage coming through this section. Does look as though he just has to correct his steering a little bit though into turn 14. Let's see what happens coming through turn 15 and into the drag down the straight, whether or not he can get himself into the slipstream and try and make it happen down into turn 1. You can see him there riding into the slipstream, just having a little look left and right. No gains to be made though. Let's flick back over to our battle for track position first. Jack de Menzies now within half a second of our race leader. 2 minutes remaining on this one. We're just coming around the final curb, so it looks as though we could have possibly another lap after this one coming up. Let's have a look here. No, looks as though it's just gone to 1 minute 51, so I think this is going to be the last lap of the race. I think the timer is going to come down to 0 as they cross the line. Jack de Menzies just having a little look up the inside there, and the console just holding on to his line. We can see a big puff of smoke from the rear as we go on board with Jack de Menzies. Comes over to the right hand side, throws it in left with a foot full of throttle, and they drag it down now into Torrevit. Going to hold on to the left hand side, try and brake as late as he can, might even go for a bit of a switchback here. No, but he goes and tries to hit the apex and get right up the trumpet of the console once again. So half a second lead gain for the console, and it looks as though he's going to ride it out all the way to the end. Going to take a bold move, I think, from the number 4 Zavima car of Jack de Menzies. We'll have to wait and see. He's going to have to be sure of it though. Coming up to Portimao now, turn 10 and 11. There's turn 10 done, into turn 11. Jack de Menzies looks as though he's got a great run through that one. He's not going to be able to capitalise, I don't think, because of the way that turn 13 is presented to them, but a little puff of smoke there from the console, and we see that lead getting shorter and shorter into this tricky Sagres and Galp section now. 20 seconds remaining on the clock, and I think it is going to count down by the time that they come and cross the line. We'll have to wait and see though. There could well be another lap set up for this one. Sprinting down to the line. It's been an epic battle between these two. It's going to be a hot contest to watch as the season progresses, but that is the race over with as the countdown timer reaches 0. So the console finishes in first with Jack de Menzies in second place. TCB Giacomo just coming around the final bend now. He's going to secure himself third position depending on how great his penalties are. So the Giacomo mob will be happy about that, I'm sure. I'd like to thank all of the viewers on the YouTube for joining us live here. And if you're watching on catch up, we hope that you've enjoyed all of the events as they've unfolded. As Giacomo crosses the line, Al Axon, aka All U82, is looking like he's about to secure his fourth position. That is a back marker that we can see ahead of him. And Stoltz just coming around the final bend now to secure fifth place on the track. Kofkar looks as though he's just about to ride the crest into turn 15. Comes across the line for a pretty impressive sixth place. And then Luke Snipes as well. He's just about to come across the line for seventh. T. Scott making a very, very good recovery drive after sustaining some pretty heavy damage into with an impact. That's enough for eighth place, I think, for him. And J46 Dyson also comes across the line. Is he going to finish ahead of T. Scott? We're going to have a look and see what penalties have got to be applied. But looks as though Dyson does leapfrog over T. Scott for that eighth position. Casey Redwood is in cruise control as he crossed the line a lap behind for 10th place. Green Gaming has also crossed the line as well in that BMW. And then our reserve driver, just running for a feature today, finishes in last position. So here are the final running order. Confirmed race results after penalties have been applied. The console takes first position with 0 penalties applied. Jack Demenzies in second with 12 seconds worth of penalties racked up. Giacomo manages to secure third place. He had 9 seconds worth of penalties. Then All U82 does very well indeed, and Lucy Axon will be happy with that. Fourth place for him with 2 seconds worth of penalties, with Stoltz in fifth with 4 seconds worth of penalty. Kofkar in sixth position, also with 4 seconds worth of penalty, and then Luke Snipes and J46 Dyson in seventh and eighth place. T. Scott gets knocked down a position to ninth place after 13 seconds worth of penalty, and Casey Redwood in 10th position. Green Gaming in 11th, followed by Survivor in 12th place, who won't get any points for this one as he is only a reserve driver. However, those points will be secured, and if he does manage to get a permanent spot, those points will be applied as soon as he's a named driver. Old Smoky is a retirement for this one. We also saw retirements from Tibby as well. And that pretty much rounds up all of the action here at round 2 at the Portimao circuit for the Flux Motorsport Touring Car Championship. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be live from Daytona Road Course next week as we begin a 3-stop tour of the USA. And you'll be able to check out all of the action from the GT1 Championship, also around Daytona Road Course, as that gets uploaded. That race takes place on Thursday, and we'll bring you the action as soon as we can. Other than that, you'll be able to join us live on Sunday from 8 o'clock in the GT3 Championship, where you'll be able to hear both myself and the console live in the box for that one. And that's going to be taking it around the circuit of the Americas. I've been your commentator for the evening, and what a race we've had. Very exciting at the start. Plenty of action to take place. My name's Murphy, and as mentioned, please make sure to follow us on all of our social media channels or your social media channel of choice, and be sure to hit a like and subscribe on the YouTube channel if you've enjoyed all of the action in tonight's race. We'll see you again live on Saturday and bringing you the action from the GT1s on Thursday. As for the rest of it, please stay safe wherever you're watching us, and we'll see you again very shortly.